You're very welcome to the Irish Political Roundup with me, Roisin the Cleric.
And me, Paul Brophy. This evening, Roisin, we're joined by someone who's very familiar to ourselves here in the Irish Political Roundup and to our viewers at home. We're talking with Patrick Murphy, who is the CEO of Ireland South and West Fisher Producers. Um, Patrick is going to give us an update on the current situation within our fishing industry. And of course, Patrick ran in the European elections back in June for Aontú because a lot of the things that Patrick is discussing are very, very much influenced by Europe. So, Patrick, you're very welcome to the program.
Thanks, Paul, and hi, Roisin. Yeah, thanks very much for having me on, lads. It's always a pleasure. I enjoy our chats. It gives me a chance maybe for to vent a little bit and get rid of some of the frustrations that we experience in our job. So thanks very much.
Well, fisheries is something that's very important and it's always overlooked and it's understated and it's not spoken about enough, even within us, the consumers, and women who are shopping and cooking for the families to the politicians. So that is our aim here on the Irish Political Roundup, is getting the fisheries back on, everyone talking about it from around the kitchen table, from the mummies and the grannies cooking the dinners around the kitchen table to the supermarkets and to our politicians.
Yeah, just to reflect on that, Roisin, after the elections and when we found out that there was going to be none of our MEPs would be sitting on the PECH committee, somebody put up a meme on social media and he said, well, fish is a brain food and looks like we ain't going to have much brains because we ain't going to have much fish going forward. So I thought it was funny, but an apt way of describing again how frustrated we in our industry are to
Mm,
see that all the promises that were made in the run up to the election and how farming and fishing were linked together, yet fishing has been dropped again by all those MEPs and
mhm,
didn't bother to take up position. And I think Hungary, I think, has somebody on the PECH committee and they're not touching a sea. So like
mm,
it's inland waters. So when you see the likes of that, our country, for the viewers, keep saying this, we have the most productive and richest waters in the European Union. We are a small player when it comes to the agriculture, because we're a small country. But yet, every MEP tries to clamour to get onto the agricultural committee and forgets about little old fishermen. And we with the richest waters in Europe, where everybody else is just falling over each other to get into to make money.
and we think we are an island. We are surrounded by water. We have, as you said, the richest fish in the world and the waters, and yet fish is so expensive, and it isn't one of our national foods. But if you go to Europe, any of the Spanish coastal areas, it's all about the fish. And
Yeah,
fish is
yeah.
very important for our health as well, as you said, brain health, but also for women's health and the omega-3s and everything else.
Yeah, it's a nutritious food. It's brought in. There's no additives put into it until somebody goes cooking it. But yeah, it's natural and it cooks fast. It's great protein, and as you said, it's full of vitamins and it's fat free. And it's in abundance for shoreline. And as I said, we have many visiting fleets coming into our water.
You've
Oh,
frozen there, Patrick.
oh,
Frozen.
yes.
Patrick,
Oh,
you froze when you was away out. It's
ah,
coming back
oh,
in again.
okay.
There he
Oh,
is.
come back in. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Patrick,
You
you
know what I
froze
said.
when you said, as I said, we have many fishing trawlers coming into our waters.
Yeah, we have. Look, it's a prized resource by other countries. They're constantly using it as a bargaining chip for other things. And even our Tánaiste and our Taoiseach said that during the Brexit negotiations, they had other considerations. That meant that the other countries were using um, other industries as a bonus if they got the fisheries in Ireland, if they could keep that, because they seen the value of it. But we don't seem to prize that. Um, we have some of the biggest boats in Europe in our fishing fleet, above in Killybegs. Everybody talks about them. But the reality is they fish for maybe 6 to 8 weeks in the calendar year because they're not allowed to fish. They don't get to fish. So when you hear of people saying that they're super trawlers and everything else, it's not true, because it's something that they don't take into consideration is the amount of time we have to fish and the amount of fish that we have. We've such a little share of the abundance of fish in our waters. It's crippling us. It's putting us out of business. Not
And
just our fishing fleet
yeah.
now, but our processing factory.
And a lot of our politicians are not really aware of their brief when you're talking about the fisheries. Because I know you watched and our interview when we were talking about with Sean O'Hagan, Councillor Sean O'Hagan, that you disagreed with what he had to say about the big fishing, about the fishing trawlers, the big fishing trawlers in Ireland.
Yeah, you see, this is the problem, is that you have people going into politics that don't even listen or bother to fact check what they say, before they say it. So he heard, as he said, somebody said it to him, and he didn't bother ringing somebody in the industry to find out. He claimed that the scientists were telling him this. I'd like to know what scientists told him that, because that's not true. We have the IFRSP. It's a meeting between the industry and the marine scientists. We sit down a minimum of 4 times a year. We go through all the scientific advice, right across the spectrum now. I'm not going to go into it here, but trust me, if he wants to sit in and listen to what we do, we can explain it to him. I work with YAPO, I work with the Northwest Waters Advisory Council, the Pelagic Advisory Council, and the Markets Advisory Council, and we go through all this on a regular basis. And I'm the chairman of the focus group for the control and enforcement regulation that has been changed and coming in here, and the complexities that's associated to that. And when you hear that interview from that person who is a publicly representative of our people, you understand then why the industry is in such bad shape, because the people that are meant to be representing us don't understand it and are actually worse than don't understanding it. They themselves, by his interview, gave out misinformation and disinformation. I hope that it won't become a criminal offence, because he'll have to answer for it, because he can't. You shouldn't be making statements like that without at least contacting somebody like ourselves in the industry and sit down. And just to explain this to the listener, we work off quotas that come from Europe. We get them from the December Council, and it's negotiated in the trade and cooperation agreement with England, because we share. That's the only one's waters really that we move into and fish in there, and they fish in our waters. And you wouldn't be allowed to overfish, because you're damaging the stocks and other people. You'll be crucified for it. We even go so far to prevent. Are we gone again? Can you hear me?
Yep.
We can hear you,
I
yeah.
might be freezing, am I?
No, but it's fine if you just keep going.
Okay.
You're freezing, then you're
We
coming back again, but you're fine. There.
okay. I don't know what's happening here. We normally have a good internet link. Um, yeah. So we brought in our own management measure in our own country, unique outside of anybody else in Europe, and it's called a quota balancing system. It's based on allocations for Europe for the member states, and we've brought that down to individual vessels, down to individual species. So an individual vessel catches more than its allocation. There is a mechanism there for which they pay that back, and that makes sure that the country as a whole does not overfish any particular quota. And we've evidence of this, like in the Marine Institute will corroborate that. So I don't know what scientists that individual politician was talking to, but maybe he could give you the name, and that we could talk to them and clarify a few things. And as I said, this is the reason why the fishing industry is being neglected, I believe, by our political elite, because they don't have the proper
Yeah.
information, and they think we're bad actors, and there's nothing further from the truth.
Yeah, Patrick. In advance of this interview, I went back over some of our old programs we did with you, and when I went back and I was taking notes, and when you be watching and you be taking notes and stuff like that, it just absolutely, I was my jaw hit the floor, and I was just so disgusted. If you think about it, I think in one interview you said if you take cod for example, which it's very popular, fish and chips, people are probably some people might be having it for their supper this evening. Ireland, I believe, can only catch about 1 ton a month of cod, and
Yeah,
so
yeah.
the quota, the entire quota for sole is 3%. Um, Spain actually uh, consumes more of Irish fish than Ireland does, so it's totally um, mismatched and mismanaged. And you're a firm believer that the common fisheries policy is not serving its purpose under the terms of, say, relative stability of coastal communities, which have declined by 2/3 over the last um, 20 years. So there's a lot of things that are incredibly wrong in your industry, and nobody seems to be doing anything about it.
No, absolutely not. And again, if that politician, I'd explain it to him like, so Ireland has signed up to a policy that is putting us out of business. There's no other way of describing it. And then we're told that we can't do anything about it. But like he's the politician. So instead of taking responsibility and actually maybe doing something about it, it's easier to blame the industry for overfishing and then label us as that. And as I said, I don't know, did you get this? But like when hate speech laws and comes in and maybe fines or prosecutions for disinformation and misinformation, what he did on your program was he gave out disinformation and misinformation without question, and I can prove that without question. So, it's something that they should be cognizant of. And again, the people of Ireland, if you keep voting for people like this, genuinely, then you'll get what you vote for, and it's not good for a country. And I would say this, if that is representative of the way a politician acts, then any information that's coming, if you're not going to check it out for yourself or double check it, then you're going to believe anything you're told. So, like, they're giving out about social media and misinformation and disinformation. Well, he did it. And so you can't complain about something when you're a contributing factor to that. And I'm just shocked that that is the level of understanding, and it isn't from want of trying or meeting politicians or asking them to meet us. And like I'd have no problem going into his chambers and giving a presentation on the industry and proper facts and figures and back them up, and not from information from me. I'll do what I did with yourself, Paul. I'll show the data that's coming from the Marine Institute, and it's all documented, what we're catching, and it has to be. A fishing boat logs their fish, not only where they what they catch and the quantities they catch, but the areas they catch it in. And then when they land the fish, they have sales documents, and their allocations are for if they do, they have to pay them back. And
Yeah,
we have to reduce them for other people. So if somebody catches the fish, they're not there for the next person. It's
yeah.
it's that simple. And if we overfish like this man thinks we're doing, or we catch more than our allocation, we swap that right with somebody else to balance the books. And that's what
Right.
you do. So we don't overfish. We're not allowed to overfish. And in actual fact, if you looked at the department's websites, most of the stocks we have, we go to 90% because we can carry forward 10% of it next year. So we actually underfish most of the stocks that we have every year. Last year we undercaught blue whiting by 4,000 tons. Before that it was seven. I'm not sure about the mackerel now because we tightened up, but most of the other stocks were always maybe the 10% underneath. Now there's a mechanism to that, right? But we don't overfish, so they don't understand the complexities of the industry that they're speaking about.
Which is
I
very,
wouldn't
very
talk about a
complex.
mechanic and how to do the engine of a car. I'm not a mechanic. If a
And
mechanic
I
heard
remember
me,
you
yeah.
saying when you started fishing back in the late 80s, you only needed about three documents to go fishing. Now you need several. So you definitely are. You're dealing in one of the most probably highly regulated and maybe even over-regulated in the world uh, at this present moment in time. But I was reading an article. It was your colleague Cormac Burke from the Irish Fishers and Seafood Alliance, and he made a good point. He said the editorial also touches on a long-standing issue of division within the Irish fishing industry. While there are some collaboration among industrial organisations, their efforts are often stymied by what Burke describes as the government and EU regime designed to hamper any attempts to alleviate the crisis. This fractured nature has made the industry an easy target for those intent on shutting it down. Would you share your colleagues' sentiments there that the whole system, be it our own government, which is crazy, and the European Union, are not helping the situation at all.
No, of course not, because look, divide and conquer, then you've divided and you've conquered them. And so if you can put one person against the other, that's exactly what the politician did. He distracted from his, when you asked about the fishing, he didn't say, well, we have the richest fishing grounds in the world and we need to get more fish. He said he blamed the bigger boats over fishing. So the only way he's getting that is that he didn't mention the smaller boats and their activities. Do you know what I mean? So straight away he created a divide. So smaller boats will be going, yeah, thanks very much. We need help. So you're targeting the bigger boats and help us instead. And that's what they do. And it's a tried and tested method. So I think that's what Cormac is referring to. And look, every fisherman wants more fish. It's as simple as that. Everybody wants to make more money. They've got a boat. They've invested hundreds of thousands, if not millions, in their industry, and they want to get a return for it. And yet they're stymied by the regulations, like you said, Paul, and a ton of cod. I know boats could go out, they could catch 10 or 20 ton of cod, no problem, because they go to an area where they are. But they're not allowed to do that because it's called choking if you catch the fish. There's regulations there, is that if you don't have them. I'll give one example, and you see this girl, Mirren is her name. She's from the islands. She's 14 years of age. She raised in the islands, and she was to go boarding. It's a way of catching white pollock out over the back of a boat. Very sustainable way of fishing, very targeted, and high quality fish, and lovely way of fishing. You don't make a lot of money, but if you get a bit of fish, you'll make a living. And this girl was doing it. And so because the scientific evaluation of the stocks changed, right? A new model was used. They decided that there wasn't much fish in the sea. In their evaluation. So they took the precautionary approach and they decided to give no allocation for fish. But because of the complexities of the common fishery policy and the landing obligation, if you have a danger of catching one fish with another, then you have to have the rights to both those fish. Otherwise, you can't go fishing. So you have to have a certain amount of white pollock to catch all the other fish. And the way our government, and I asked this question in front of my daughter at the December Council in front of the minister and the scientists, and I said, okay, so what you've involved now is a bycatch regime, okay, that each country will continue with all the other types of fishing. How did you decide how the bycatch was to be allocated? And the answer I got was, oh, to recover the stocks. And I said, that's not what I asked. What I asked was, how did you pick a figure first? And they said, yeah, we say that you can catch 2,000 tons, right? And they to be divided up between the countries. Now, if you're looking on a bycatch provision, that means you look at all the countries' catch efforts and who caught what in the previous year, and to make sure they don't get choked or they run out of that type of fish, you give them a certain quantity to allow them to continue in the other fisheries. But they didn't do that. What they did was they looked at the historic rights to that fish and they gave it that way. So the likes of France got, say, 430 tons. The UK got hundreds of tons. Ireland got 78 tons. But when you look at the catching record in the history for the last number of years, we are very close to the French catches. So they were catching maybe 1,200 or 1,300, and we were catching from 900 to 1,000. So if you work that out in ratios, they might have been catching 30% more than you. So they'd get 30% more. So if we got 100 tons, they should get 130. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
But they got 400, we got 78.
And when
So they didn't use the bycatch provision as it was intended. And now we are in a precarious situation that all our fisheries could close down because you said earlier that a fisherman gets a ton per month. Well, now in that fishery, they get 50 kilos a month.
fish,
50 kilos a month. So that's a kilo and a half a day. That's two or three fish. Now, and they don't target these fish. So if these fish are caught in the mixed stock fishery, that's why the bycatch is there, you could see Ireland in serious trouble. We either have to swap in more of that pollock from another country, and we are dependent on them swapping it. And if we don't get it in, then we can't go fishing. Not for the pollock, for everything. So you see, this is when politicians speak and they don't understand what they're talking about, the subject matter. And because other people it's not being covered, you're the only ones that I know of are trying to get out this information in fairness to you. And
and
I'm not telling lies, I'm telling the truth, but our media doesn't care. They don't see the waters around Ireland is something that they should be talking about. It's grand when they want to talk about sticking out wind farms into the middle of it. They don't care about the damage or potential damage that that will have on the environment because they think, oh, it's great for the environment because it reduces fossil fuels. And they want to look into how much is put into the making of them in the first place and how much lubricants and oil goes into the turbines themselves that are sitting inside them. When you see one going on fire and it goes on fire for smoke, uh, something is burning. That's the coolants and the oils that are there for the mechanism that's running it. And nobody talks about that, but he picks the soft target, the fishermen. Oh, they're overfishing. They deserve everything they get. It's sad, really.
Why is this not a political campaign nationally? Why is there not an outcry? Now, I know I'm talking to the converted then, as you want it, but it's surprising to me, and know nothing about fishing. I know nothing about coastal areas. Well, I was from Derry, where there was a coastal area, but why? I know as a woman, as somebody who and worried about my health, because that's where I got the interest in fish. And yet you have all this fake feminism and fake menopause and fake women's
I,
health
I'm
things, and yet we are not eating
my internet.
our own fish.
Yeah, because we're shipping it out. Uh, I'll give you. You've seen in the recent weeks the amount of furore there was over a bicycle shed in the Dáil. And every
Yeah.
man, woman in the country knows about that shed in the Dáil because it was non-stop being discussed on every radio station. It was on the news. It was time and time again. And that's 384,000, which was what I heard on Claire Byrne show. Everybody's stuck on 335. No, add another 50,000 to it and everybody's talking about that. Yet I'm talking about €1 billion, which would build a hell of a lot of bicycle sheds that we seem to be leaving on the table when it comes to our fishing waters. And like the boats are there, all they need is to be told, right, lads, here's more fish to catch. They'll bring it in. The factories are screaming for this product. And it would bring down the price of it for the consumer and give more healthy. And but the media won't cover it, Roisin. We are the sacrificial lamb for other things, like I said, and they're being told that, shush, be quiet. This is an embarrassment to the government. This is why I believe that politician again blackened the Irish fishermen with mistruths and didn't bat an eyelid when he said it. And that's why. So people think, oh, sure, the fishermen are greedy, they're raping the seas, they're overfishing, they deserve everything they get. And not looking at it as, hang on a second, this is Ireland's resource. This is yours. Every man, woman, and child in the country deserve to get something out of our seas. And we will provide that by catching the fish, bringing it in, processing it, creating jobs, adding to the exchequer. and they benefit from it. They get to eat the food. If there's more quantities caught, the price will come down. It's more equitable for us to be bringing in more fish. We can take a lower price because we make more money. But people don't see that, and the
No.
reason why they don't see it is because they're not being told it. And
But
that
Paul,
that's
I
that's
think
the
we should
problem.
start
And
making, yeah, I think
Yeah,
we should start making this a political campaign,
absolutely.
on the Irish political roundup. And, Patrick, I think we should have you on every month to actually give us an update of what is happening in our Irish fisheries and in our waters and fish, because it also affects our local economies.
there is something I want to come back on, Roisin.
Yes.
Mhm.
Sorry, the signal is bad. I just want to touch on something else that, again, that shows that your speaker on the program, again, didn't know what they were talking about. And again, you brought it up, and that's the Defence Forces, where he
Yes.
said it was the Minister for Defence. We have plenty boats. We have 12 boats. What we don't have is crew. So again, instead of addressing the issue of looking after our men
Yes.
and women in our defence forces, he swerved the question and he blamed it on boats. And again, just shows that he wasn't and didn't take the time before he spoke to investigate to see what he was saying was factually correct. Didn't care. Again, probably heard it, didn't hear it properly, and not good enough. And this is because I believe passionately that our men and women in our defence forces are treated very, very badly. Shockingly, to be honest with you. And then, for what the sacrifices they make. And it's just not good enough
No.
for somebody to come on and make those statements. It's wrong, really.
Well, you know
Absolutely.
how passionate I am about our defence forces, and how proud I am, and how I believe the government have really not looked after our defence forces, and the lack of goodwill within politicians who just do not want to even support the defence forces, and any excuse at all to blacken the defence forces. And I'm very passionate about that as a defence force mammy. My son's in the defence forces, but you know what? Every other country. Are really proud of their defence forces. Every other country. How many? You look at America. How the Americans really honor their men and women in their military, and Ireland doesn't even invest in our country, in our defence forces. And similar with the fisheries. And you know what, that are two things that the Irish political roundup are going to be very passionate about from now on. Well, I was passionate about the defence forces on the radio, and we've been passionate on here. But you know what, Patrick, the defence forces, they were 10,000, I think. I stand to be corrected. Then it went down to eight. Now it's down to 6,000. The pays and conditions and retention, and the Navy, who protect our shores and our seas and our coastal, and then the Air Force, and then men and women, have been absolutely atrociously treated, especially over the recent months. And it's absolutely atrocious that politicians are not out there saying to our men and women in our defence forces, thank you for your service. You make Ireland proud. So I know I got very passionate about that too, as well as the fisheries. Um, but the fisheries, it is atrocious that it is not a political campaign, and local politicians, even around the coastal areas of Ireland, are not in uproar over this as well. It takes one man, and Patrick, it seems to me I only ever hear you talking about the fisheries.
Yeah, we try, and like, we're delighted to speak with yourselves, and we look forward to doing this on a more regular basis.
Yeah.
But as I said, like, if they didn't cover it, then you can't blame the public for not knowing it, because it isn't like we don't try and put on events. Like, you've seen me running in the election. They did not mention my notoriety, which was with the Russians. It was on the last night when I was eliminated that it was mentioned, and people were saying to me, "Oh God, Jesus, we didn't realize it was you." And we would have voted for you. But like, that's small comfort. after an election campaign, and people were saying, "Look, you did very well for a first time out, and you should." And like, it wasn't just the fishing industry that I was representing; it was our sovereignty. It's the measuring stick that I think we should be using for our people. We fought long and hard. We celebrated getting our independence. Only 100 years independence. And then we can't look after our waters, and a policy can wipe out an entire industry and communities and our heritage and everything else. And the same with our Navy and our defense forces. It's shocking, to be honest.
Okay.
We see our health services in disarray.
Yes.
You know, it's there is solutions to this, absolutely, but for 166 Dáil deputies that are up there, it's shocking to think that we can't get a hold of enough of them to understand what we're about as a country, and how much they could influence things if they really wanted to. And you have to ask, well, who's running the country? Like, is it
Mm.
our politicians, or is it the civil servants that are there, and what they believe it should be? But definitely that councillor wouldn't be somebody that I'd like to see going into a position where he should be knowing what his brief is, and then not knowing it, and coming out with him. Like, I don't know what else he was asked about, bar the supermarkets, and as I said, not really understanding that if you bring in multinationals, you're going to close down small businesses inside your town. As a Labour person representing the small worker and stuff like that, you're kind of wondering, do you understand what it is, a social concept inside in your towns and villages? You can't just have the one big supermarket and no competition, no price. Eventually that will change. They're there to make money, and if there's no competition to keep them honest, by God, you'll see the prices going up quick.
Well, maybe
And
what we might do
sorry,
is see if we can get introduce you and Sean together, and maybe we can sort of show Sean or introduce you Sean off air or on air, and maybe he might learn more about the Irish fisheries and the fishing crisis here in Ireland.
Yeah, if you want to, you can tell him that if he wants to do it, if he's a councillor, and explain it to all the councillors, and I'll do a presentation. I can show him the environmental side of it, what we do, and no problem educating him on the fisheries of Ireland, and how it is. And then maybe, and if he and the rest of the councillors might, instead of using the mis and disinformation, not to stand by the Irish fishermen, maybe he might change his mind, and maybe they'll start, maybe like yourselves, they might do something about it in the positive rather than the negative. I would welcome that, and I can guarantee you, I could bring more colleagues with me, or invite him on to a meeting. I'm sure that if he wanted to become an observer to one of the meetings with the scientists, he can. It wouldn't take long of his time. But like, definitely something has to change, Roisin. And if you could be a catalyst to that, we in the Irish fishing industry, while we're still around, would appreciate it, because, and I'm not saying this as a joke, we are in the fight of our lives. And it is unbelievable that we are, when we have the richest fishing grounds in Europe, that the Irish industry is on its knees, both the catching and the processing sector. And there doesn't seem to be that realization in our political representatives that this is the case. Um, it's mad, because we're not telling lies. If they want to, they can look at the maps, or and look at the resources of Ireland. It's clear to be seen. Like, we have the biggest fishing grounds in
Mm.
Europe. We have
We,
the continental
yeah.
shelf. We have the best. We have all the other countries coming here. All the data is there. Like, it's pick up the marine stock book. It's there every year. It's built on every year, and I don't understand why they can make statements like that.
And also,
and
Patrick, sorry, Paul.
you're
What
okay.
also shocked me and Paul and I when we went down to the to Limerick to the what was that, the fishing
Skipper Expo, yeah.
the Skipper Expo, and we saw the amount of industries that and businesses and small local family businesses were connected with on the broader issue of the Irish fisheries and the fishing industry. And we went around and went, wow, we didn't realize so many businesses, but most of all, small local family businesses that contribute to the local economy and the national economy.
Yeah, and that's what it is like. And whenever the economy took a dip, the fishing was the one that sustained all those coastal communities, and they did look after it, so they kept the economic activity going. And that's going to be gone now. Like there's no Google's or Meta's industries in these localities, like, and they're
Yeah.
talking about the tourism industry. We had one hotel in Castletown Bear that's closed. There's around 5 or 6 bed and breakfasts. So that's not going to replace it. The town is still trying to stay vibrant as much as possible, and because of its isolated nature, it's a good 2 hours from Cork. You have clothes shops and shoe shops and stuff like that. That's managing to stay open in the town. But eventually, if there's no being put under pressure.
So it's just really sorry, Paul, you were going to say something and I interrupted you. My apologies.
You're okay, you're okay. Patrick, there's one piece of legislation there that, you know, Ireland, the UK, from what I'm reading when they were negotiating after Brexit, certainly did utilize it. The United Nations laws of the sea, and now I'm open to correction on this, that in it it says those who are closest to the resource should have first call. So I know yourself and other uh, members in the fishing industry, um, that there is a way of getting uncaught fish from other countries and put back into the Irish quotas, which would bump, bump up the Irish quota, which would, certainly help um, the Irish fishing industry. It seems to be something that's not being utilized or being active. Or the Irish state obviously isn't activating it to try um improve the situation of Irish fishermen.
Yeah, the system that operates in Brussels is one of quantitative voting. So you have us as a small nation with the biggest fishing ground giving away, and our minister then goes over and he says, "Listen, I want more fish," and they look at each other and they go, "Thanks very much for asking. No, we're not giving it back to you," and then move on. So that's what happens. Whereas instead, I believe that the actual common fishery policy, well, what is the common fishery policy designed to do? And in my view, it's to look after the coastal communities. It's there to look after the environment, and it's there to look after the sustainability of the stocks. It's not doing any of the three. Our stocks are being fished by other countries, and that's bringing them into zero catch advice. Like I said, you heard what I said about the white pollock. Francis, even with a bycatch, they 400 plus tons. We're down to 78, even though we were catching roughly the same. And we're just not getting a fair share of our own resource, and it's having a detrimental effect on our coastal communities. And as you said, under UNICLOS law, if we were out of the European Union, just like they proved that they were able to claim back their fish. They said, well, we're out of the agreement and the policy. We believe the policy isn't serving our fishermen in our nation. So we're taking back our fish. We don't believe the policy is working. And they were entitled to do so. The double whammy for Ireland was that not only did we have to give them fish from our share, but the other countries gave fish to the UK from our waters. So they paid again with something that they had a historic right to, and they turned it into a commodity. And look, I've said this to the MEPs, and just like that, again, I refer back to the politician. They don't seem to grasp or understand the complexities of the industry, and they feel that it's easier to use the system that's there to be able to say, well, I did ask, I didn't get anywhere, and that's as far as I'm going to go with it. And as I said, because our Irish government have said that there are more important negotiations in Europe than to fight for our fishermen.
It's unbelievable.
Crazy.
Patrick, we're coming up to the end of our program, but I think it'd be nice because you mentioned about what you did with the Russians. I think it'd be nice just to tell our viewers who haven't heard of it before or who haven't seen our previous programs. Can you tell us about the story of the Russians?
Yeah, a man called Niall Duffy came into my office and he raised the issue that there was a warning put out that there'd be no fly zone over Ireland. And I said, well, what's that? He said, oh, the Russians are coming in. They're going shooting off ordnance up into the sky. I said, oh my God, here we go. We'll be fishing. Our own government are going to kick us out because the Russians are there. So we raised it. We brought it into the public and we spoke to RT Clown in fairness. This is the power of the media. So the RT on this occasion and TV3 came down and they interviewed us and we gave our viewpoint to how wrong this was. And America picked it up. And when America picked it up, then it became global news that these fishermen were going to take on the might of the Russian Federation. And people were kind of saying, is this real? The Russians contacted me and they said, look, your fears are unfounded. I gave them information to say I don't think so. And they invited me up to meet with them and they processors. And they agreed to carry that message back to Russia. And as the ambassador said inside in the Oireachtas, as an act of goodwill towards our fishermen to show that they had no intentions of doing anything to harm us, they were going to move their exercises outside of where we're fishing and go into international waters where we couldn't say anything to them. They were international waters. And that was a huge move. Now, I don't know, do the Irish people believe that that actually happened? But the ambassador said it did. We certainly said it did. And they witnessed that it did happen. So that's what happened. The Americans took it that it was a new strategy of negotiation. I don't know that people realize that.
Oh,
And it was a new strategy that they said should be followed. And that was like Gandhi or like that the power of ourselves with passive resistance, but to come together. But look, we knew what happened. What happened was the world took on this story. They backed us. The media backed us. The people themselves backed it. Now, the media out far and backed us. We were treated a bit of a joke first until it actually became a realization when Simon Coveney actually announced that we had achieved our aims and said that he had written a letter to his counterpart and that he believes also played a part in it. I wasn't too worried about whether he did or didn't, or that it didn't. All I was concerned about was, did it happen? And I was surprised that it did happen, that we did affect that change. And it just shows, if we could do that, I'm so frustrated that we can't convince the Irish people to look after their fishing grounds a little bit more and to fight with us, not against us, not to divide us, but like, right, Jesus, surely be the God people will understand it's not okay to have a 4 or 5% of the fish in our own any
right.
species, or that we should be getting 50%. That's the truth.
Yeah.
And if we had that, like we would have some wealth in our country. You would be talking about rich towns and villages, a vibrant industry all around the shoreline. It would be a place for people to go, and we'd spend money in our own localities. We'd put in more amenities. Those hotels would open up. You would have more fishermen there. You'd have their friends and families coming to visit. They'd need a place to stay. You would regenerate our coastal communities to an even greater level. And I always use Vigo as an example. Vigo has a sitting population of 250,000 people. Sorry, I'm accessing the information in my brain. 250,000 people during the year. But during the summer, that swells to 1 million people.
Wow.
Do you know? Imagine. So and like I've been to Vigo and like the fishing is the nucleus in which everything else is built. we could do the same in our own country all around, and it would spread everywhere else. I'm not saying that I'm dreaming that this would happen. I
No.
see it in other countries, and of
Mm.
course it is. And you see people coming to stalls and people selling fish at the side of the things, and people with loads of money will pay an awful lot more money than you were expecting to pay in the supermarket. They pay for the privilege, the experience of going down, meeting the boats and the fishermen, taking the fish directly from them live in some cases, taking it home to their apartments and their places. And they treat it as a real treat. Like, God, look at the fish that we're eating. Look how fresh. Now we know it's
Yeah.
fresh. And the taste, and they
Yeah.
savor it, and they say it, and they eat it off the bones. We should be doing the same here
We
as an
should
island
be.
nation. And we should be
We
doing
should
it
be we should be
on a
thanking
range
our
of people.
fishermen and supporting our fishermen the way we need to be supporting our defence forces as well. And support the
And
two
like,
of them.
can I give an example, Roisin, of how I would say this? We see different varieties of spuds, in the supermarket. We have the same in fish, and the different
Oh,
textures and flavors and structure fish. We should be able to say, well, fantastic. I had bream yesterday. I had skates. I had herring. I had cod. I had whiting. I had haddock. And not only that, I cooked all those fish 3 or 4 different ways, nice and fast. So like multiples, and trying out new flavors. And I just don't understand it like that. We as an island nation should be doing that. We
Yeah.
do it in our own house and mix combinations, and you've even put shrimp into some fish and taste it together in different. Oh, it's just fantastic, and fresh salads and everything else in the time of the year. We really don't see how lucky we are as a country at the moment. But it would be sad to see that all
Yeah.
go and future
yeah.
generations going, well, what happened?
Because Patrick, there in 2004 there were 400 boats, and now it's 20 years later, you're down to about 120, between 120 and 140, I think, and that just
Yeah.
goes to show um the difficulties that fish fishermen are facing, and what I was reading as well, and looking back, once that boat is decommissioned, all the rights to that fish with that boat are gone. So that boat is lost forever, which is incredibly sad.
Yeah. And it's
Yeah,
destroying families.
it's to be honest, though, yeah, but we're seeing that in our coastal towns and villages as well. Like, it's, our pubs and our way and our traditions are going, and less and less and less and less and less and less. And we're changing the fabric of our coastal towns and villages. Nothing that resembles what was there before. And it's sad to see it. The thing is that we could reverse it. We could genuinely reverse it if we had a will, but there doesn't seem to be the will there. And until that changes, it's going to get worse, unfortunately. And I think time is running out. I think we're at I've said this for the last number of years, and I'm only in this part of the job for the last 8, and I've been saying it from the day that I came in with fresh eyes and trying to say it to our politicians. This is happening, lads. It's happening, and it's going to happen. It's going to speed up. You're going to see more and more. And the very simple reason why I'm saying that is this. I don't know of any other industry in the country where a generation family would work so hard to achieve to get the tools, right? Get the boat, get the equipment that they've been working so hard to get to a standard that is matching any other fleet in the world. And then their children or their relations are saying, nah, no thanks, not for me. I know it's there. I know it's worth a couple of million, but I won't take it on. Yeah, I know there's plenty fish in the sea, and I could make a fortune if I was allowed. And they're just saying it's just too much to see what they can do and being restricted. And if they make a mistake and catch too much, they're criminalized for doing their job. And who would enter an industry like that? And
No.
that's what I see as the real danger of our industry, is we're going to lose the people in our industry, and then that's the end of it. There's just going to be nobody there. Um, It's just like the railway lines, lads, when they took them up. You have
Mm.
the station standing there for a number of years and just a ghost, a relic of our past and gone. And everybody mithering now. We should be putting in more railway tracks. We should be connecting, and we don't seem to learn from what our history showed us. And I just don't understand it. I really don't. But I thank the likes of yourselves before this ends for giving an opportunity to anybody that sees this. And look, if you're watching this and you see what is being said here tonight and it interests you, share it. Give it to other people. Say, look at this, and we'll see you again in a month's time or whatever,
Absolutely.
and we'll bring you up to date on the rest of
Yeah.
it. And I don't want to be defeatist. I don't want to be depressing anybody. I just want to make people aware. You have a massive, wealthy resource around your island. It's yours. The fishermen only catch it and bring it ashore. They're just the first tool. It's like the miner pulling the stuff out of the ground. It's like the farmer sowing the seeds. After he harvests it, he gives it on to you and everybody else. It's really yours and it's something you need. But you need to speak up if you think that it's worth speaking up for. And you're not speaking up for the fishermen, you're speaking up for yourself. You mightn't realize it, but it is
Mm.
a fact.
Well,
Patrick,
Patrick, thank you so much for taking the time because you drove back from a meeting and to hop on to talk to us, and we really do appreciate this. And know that, we will be taking our fisheries and supporting our fishermen and our fishing industry, our coastal economy and coastal towns and villages around the island to our hearts here on the Irish Political Roundup. Not just to our hearts, we'll be putting it into action by talking about it and putting out the videos.
absolutely. And you've this
Appreciate that, lads.
this
We do.
video has also been a great learner for me as well. And I think you have challenged some of the misconceptions and misinformation that's out there as well, Patrick. And I think that's extremely important. So I'd like to say thanks a million for your time coming on the Irish Political Roundup, and we will be continuing this campaign uh, for the foreseeable future.
Until we reclaim our fishing rights.
But hopefully, yeah, I think that there is an avenue there for us if we have it. I think the other countries are just astounded that we haven't done
Yeah, yeah,
it. So I think they're expecting it, but
yeah.
we just need the right people to step forward, and we need our media to make it a national issue. Um, we're talking about other things that have gone wrong in our history. I hope we won't be talking, lads, in 10 or 15 years, and you'll be saying, well, look at the tribunals that are going on now, Patrick. If only they'd listened to you and your colleagues 20 years ago, we might have a fishing industry and be an island nation proud of our nautical heritage. Wouldn't it be terrible if what I feel and fear will come to pass? It would be a failure on my part, to be honest with you. I would take it as a failure on my part if that does happen.
Well, Paul, maybe what we could do some
Hmm?
weekend is drive down to Castletownbere and do some
Yeah,
videoing down there of
yeah,
our
yeah,
coastal communities and support our fishermen. And
yeah.
we'll do that
I
in the
was down in
future.
West Cork a couple of weeks ago on holidays, and it's a very beautiful part of the world.
Well, Patrick Murphy, thank you so much indeed for taking the time to come and talk to the Irish Political Roundup tonight.
Thanks,
Thank you, Patrick.
Roisin, and thanks, Paul.